Richie Torres was on the Adam Friedland show yesterday, and boy, is this guy Torres a real beauty. Adam Friedland, who I didn't really know from anyone, I had seen him interview Paul Schrader before and got the sense that he was a right wing troll because of the way he was provoking Schrader. And it just gave me those vibes. Apparently, based on his interview with Torres, he at least has left wing sympathies. Look, I could be totally wrong about how I'm reading him. I gather he's a left winger who just uses like acerbic or caustic comedy, but I thought he was really good and funny and really like showed his conscience yesterday with Torres in a moment, or it was no more than a moment. It was like the last 20 minutes that showed me what I thought was like something that kind of crystallizes how we'll look back at this as so tragic. Beyond that, but Torres, who is a congressman in New York, very charismatic, very interesting guy to listen to, which doesn't exonerate him of any of his atrocious behavior in supporting Israel's genocide of Palestine. It just goes to show that for us Americans, at least, we're so brainwashed by World War II movies and documentaries into thinking that fascism is just an aesthetic, meaning fascism is when people shout in German in scratchy black and white footage and in tinny audio, and it's when they dress in German uniforms from the 40s, and when you have black and white footage of prisoners going through camps. That's what it is. So in other words, it's this like fixed thing that you can project a fantasy on in which you're so different from it and not the reality, which is these were ordinary people. These were weak people. These were ambitious people. And that it's perfectly possible for any so-called decent society to descend into this kind of mass murder. And America's been guilty of it from the beginning. So let's not even pretend this isn't like us. This is us. But Torres, oh man, this guy. He Adam Friedland first questioned him. You know, he's got problems when he said the problem with Congress isn't that it's corrupt, or the government, whatever, isn't that it's corrupt, is that it's stupid. And clearly not willing to call out his own donors, which we're about to get to. Adam Friedland pressed him because Torres talked about how important public housing is. It was great. He was good at talking about that. Shows you how Jesus, I'm sweating. Shows you how people who support the most zealous, mass murderous ideologies can present themselves as like well-adjusted, decent people, kind, thoughtful, caring. So that to me speaks to why, like NBC News, I remember years ago when they were interviewing these white nationalists and calling them like dapper Nazis, and they were so impressed because they wear suits now, and I could tell they were mesmerized because it's like they were shocked by the fact that they weren't like screaming German in black and white footage, but that they were like regular people. It's like, yeah, what do you think these people are? You think they're all just screaming lunatics? And the perverse, like a way we look at, we justify people saying that, oh, they're not white supremacists because they're good guys, shows how ignorant we are. Where if I say that like white supremacists are in fact ordinary people, they're not necessarily mentally ill, they're not necessarily deranged. I mean, they have deranged views for sure, but it's something, first of all, endemic to our society on a broader scale than something broader than just our individual ideologies. It's what built America and destroyed much of America. But also, it goes to show how people think like genocide is just this fixed thing. Lindsey Graham, what a moron, talking how he gave a speech how he's sick of people saying Israel's committing a genocide. He said if they wanted to, they could have. Interesting. Lindsey Graham would have had no ability, no means, by the same rhetoric, the same argument, to say that Germany was committing a genocide in the 30s and 40s, even though like they were absolutely intent set on doing it. He would be forced to say, oh yeah, they could kill all these people, you know, in the camps, but they're using them as slaves. They're sometimes freeing them. Apparently he doesn't know that their mustache leader freed 1,800 Jews, including some from Auschwitz. Why? Because he was so afraid of backlash from German, like women of the race, German women who were married to those Jews, and they were complaining and protesting and stuff. And so he released them because he didn't want public outcry against him. In other words, it shows you how weak he was. Now, I think he should have released them all, but and then he should have locked himself into prison and never gotten out. But it goes to show how utterly ignorant, like how brainwashed we are just by imagery, just by movies. Like we think fascism is just an aesthetic. So when it happens in front of us, we're like, wait, that's like real people. That's different from the black and white stuff where you have Germans screaming, sinister music, shadowy lighting. You have them with slick back hair or like sneering. That's so many movies have villains sneering. So when you don't see someone sneering, what you do is what NBC News did. Be like, wow, these dapper Nazis, I don't get it. I'm charmed by them. They're nice people. I guess that's what determines if you're bad or not, is if you're nice to me. So Richie Gullible Torres, as many people are calling him, he's not gullible. He's fully on board with this horror. When Adam Friedland pressed him about public housing and asked, well, if you're in support of public housing, why do you accept donations from Blackstone, which is an exploitative capitalist group which treats housing as speculation, keeps housing prices high, buys up housing just to hold it as a speculative investment when housing should not be commodified. Richie Torres, very telling, said, well, look at my record. You'll see it speaks for itself. In other words, there's this big gaping hole that Torres should be plugging with his explanation of why he accepts this money. Now, Torres made the distinction between Blackstone, the corporation, donating and Blackstone employees. I don't know if that's what happened. It might be. He wasn't really like pushing that, though. That's the interesting thing. Like, he didn't push that hard. If it was true, like, say it, because I mean, come out with it more clearly, because he was saying, like, you know, Blackstone may be employees with left-wing sympathies that donated to him, which is, it just shows his grift if he's willing to say that, because it's like, first of all, you're not left-wing. Second of all, but you know, left-wing ideas are kind of popular, and it shows how cowardly we are as a people, that like this is even tolerable. But Adam Friedland pressed him and said, well, why'd they donate to you? Because you're a nice guy? Like, why'd they do that? Basically, he's asking, like, what did they expect from you in return? And Torres kept saying, my record speaks for itself. There's another way of saying that, which is, I'm going to accept money from unsavory groups that actually work against the interests of my constituents, who he's been talking about as in such dire need of quality public housing. He talked very eloquently about the problems with it, how it's been underfunded, it's falling apart, it's got health problems because of mold and disease or other infestations like vermin, cockroaches, and rats and stuff. Great, like, absolutely, we should be talking about this. And then to take money from a group that helps ensure that those people in public housing just stay in the shadows and stay neglected, it kind of it shows the double dealing he's doing. Now, when they got to Israel, that was really interesting. Adam Friedland made a point of saying he's Jewish and of anti-Semitism he's been aware of. It's a longer conversation. You should watch it. It's actually, a lot of times people say you should watch this, read this, whatever. It's like, it's not that enlightening. For me, it was interesting to see Adam Friedland show sort of a flashpoint of his conscience when he got really upset. And it's like, yeah, this is exactly what it looks like when a genocide is being engaged in and we're complicit. And Adam Friedland, who's Jewish, was talking about how uncomfortable it is for him to talk about this. Like, why are we like doing this, you know, if we were taught that it's wrong? And by we, I don't mean Jews. I mean like we, like anybody doing it. Like if we believe this is wrong, why are we now doing this? And it's being done in my name. So Torres, he is such a snake. Like when Adam Friedland talked about how, like, Torres talked about his visit to Israel being like life-changing for him. He saw the trauma, the PTSD that Israelis and Israeli kids go through. But Friedland made a point of humanizing Palestinians. Oh, no, big mistake with Richie Torres, who took $1.1 million from AIPAC. And he knows his handlers are watching for his loyalty. obviously he's not willing to reject Blackstone money. He's certainly not willing to reject APAC money. But and that's not corruption when you're paid that much money. But he said, what about the Palestinians who are living, who even before October 7th were living in like basically colonial settler outposts, and their houses were being bulldozed, and they were being arrested and abused and made to go through checkpoints for hours each day just to go to work and come back, and their food limited and their electricity rationed, etc. They're basically in one big prison. Don't you think they would lash out at some point? Torres said something very revealing. I want you all to think about this. He said, so you're justifying what Hamas did. That's very interesting. That's revealing, because that shows that he has no understanding of how to place a motive on someone. So a prosecutor in prosecuting a crime, let's say murder, looks for things to corroborate their case. They don't just pin it on some random, well, okay, I'll take it back. Prosecutor, there are a lot of awful prosecutors, and I've seen the stories of them. But a good prosecutor, let's say, will want to assign means, motive, and ability. 3 things to be able to identify someone before a judge or a jury to get them a conviction, in order to be able to say, here's how they did it. They had the means, they had the ability. So not just the means, but you need the ability. If you have the means, say you have a gun, but you're 1,000 miles away from someone, you say, okay, well, they had the means, but they didn't have the ability. And the motive, the reasoning for it. You need some understanding to be able to construct a narrative to explain how that happened. Now, Torres doesn't want you thinking in terms of that. Why? Because it starts to make the Palestinians look human, like they have their own motivations for doing things. And because he says he's just referring to Hamas, but the reality is he conflates Palestine with Hamas, leftists with Hamas. So therefore, you start assigning any agency, even to Hamas operatives. Now he's saying, oh, Palestinians might have that too, and they may have reason to be critical of Israel and to not want the settler colony on them. Oh, that's very troublesome for his whole game, where he accepts over $1 million from AIPAC and he supports genocide. And he sort of distinguishes the right-wing extremists in the Israeli government like from the righteous cause of this genocide. Well, there is no self-defense claim to genocide, but it's interesting who gets motives and who doesn't. And here's the other problem, which he really should be brought to task on. If you don't believe in assigning motive and figuring out motive, you're cutting off your own ability to be able to prevent terror attacks in the first place. Meaning you cannot distinguish between who's a possible enemy and who isn't. So if you understand motive, you understand possibly where there may be motive fomenting, and you can either stop it or do diplomacy or figure out a way to avoid killing, to avoid conflict. That's what you want to be doing. That's what intelligence gathering ostensibly is about, when you're trying to figure out who's a threat and who isn't. So if he doesn't believe in assigning motive to people, because motive is too humanizing, it's the equivalent of justifying what Hamas is, and I don't justify what they did on October 7th. I say nothing justifies that, just as nothing justifies what Israel is doing. But I don't both sides it like, oh, it's just bad. It's just bad when people kill. No, Israel has the superior firepower. They have the horrible mission of wanting to clear out Gaza, and they've been backed by the U.S. for so long. And if we stopped backing them, they would not be able to fight, and they may very well just collapse, because we've got so much entangled with them. By the way, Richie Torres refused to acknowledge, or didn't want to acknowledge, or was shocked that Proud Boys were Zionists. Adam Friedland brought that up. How he said, like, yeah, I'm familiar with the anti-Semitic attacks. He brought up Proud Boys saying anti-Semitic stuff, harassing students, I believe at UCLA, and he said they were harassing leftist Jewish students. And Torres was like, white nationalists are Zionists or supportive of Israel. what a moron. It's not even about more. He's paid to be ignorant. He doesn't understand that there are a lot of facets to Zionism and white supremacy, and Christian nationalism, and a lot of white supremacists or white nationalists who believe that it's just not fair that Israel can have an ethno state, but we can't. They want different ethnic groups to have their own ethno states. I don't want to repeat too much of what they said, but they've said this stuff. They've made it clear. Richie Torres doesn't give a damn about that. And if you want to keep Israelis safe, you want to understand the motives of the people who would attack you. What he's saying instead, ostensibly, he's kind of veering into, well, they're just human animals. They're like wolves, basically, or some kind of rabid beast that they don't really have motives. They just attack wildly. And while he gives lip service to, war is a tragedy. War is a tragedy. But Hamas killed so many people on October 7th, ostensibly the 20,000 or more kids that Israel has killed. What does it matter to him if it was 40,000 or 60,000 or 100,000 or 200,000? What would be the moral difference to him? If it was only 100, it would still be horrible. But what is the difference to him? Like, he's not put a limit at that. So clearly, it's not about like encapsulating anything in a coherent ideology. He is straight up justifying, saying, well, we can't tell the difference between Hamas, Palestinians, combatants, civilians. Just kill them all. Kill them all. It's bad afterwards. Afterwards, I'll say it's bad. It's just general bad. There was no thing that caused it, no people. It's just bad. And why are we so deeply tied to Israel? Like, why are we supporting this? And why is it like he wouldn't be even clear with saying like what he thinks anti-Semitism is. He was trying to get Adam Friedland, which was kind of gross, doing it to a Jewish guy, saying like, oh, so you don't think there's left-wing anti-Semitism. But he said, like, I think Jewish students and Zionists and Jewish Zionists should be safe. Oh, conflating two very different things. The ideology of Zionism and Jewish people. It's interesting, too, to note that, like, at least for me, well, for one thing, look, I'm not Jewish. I do get, like, sometimes people insult me thinking I'm Jewish because I espouse progressive ideas, and they ask me, like, oh, are you Jewish? Or no wonder you look Jewish. So much of anti-Semitism is rooted in the belief that, I won't even get into the whole white supremacy. They believe that Jews are trying to destroy the white race. It's a very ugly, stupid, old myth. Torres wouldn't really touch that. Like, he didn't want to deal with that. Clearly, he didn't understand much about it, given what he was like, confusion about the Proud Boys. Like, what? Yeah, Proud Boys, like, unfortunately to him, to try and explain it to him, it would make him think, oh, you're trying to justify what the Proud Boys do? Doesn't want to understand the motives of people who, it would make us safer, like everybody safer, if we understood the motives of people who have ill intent and want to commit harm and spread horrible, pernicious ideas. But again, that would a little uncomfortably close to getting to humanizing Palestinians, because now he could not say that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitism. The idea that there's this state that claims they represent Jews and that Jews owe loyalty to it, like, which is itself an anti-Semitic idea, and it's a white supremacist idea that Jews are just loyal to Israel. And the idea that somehow, like, Jews owe it loyalty, like, is there any limit to that? Like, what if, at what point, like, should we use our leverage on Israel to say, okay, we're not going to supply arms if you're going to commit genocide? I mean, ostensibly, like, we do that with other countries for far less, or just for perceived, like, opposition to the U.S. We still have Iran and Cuba under sanction. We've done horrible things to those countries, and the sanctions don't work, by the way. It pushes them, well, first of all, it like needlessly cuts off medicine and other supplies to them, but also it foments more enemies and more chauvinism and nationalism and right-wing leaders into galvanizing people against the U.S. Again, to him, he's, oh, so you're justifying that? It's funny. Nothing justifies anything to him, except apparently Israel has every justification in the world to wipe out Palestinians. But what I was getting at, it's okay, different. It's a different case, but you can look at parallels. So I happen to be of Greek descent. I'm American. Um, Greek is a pretty monolithic. Greek, what the hell? Greece is a pretty monolithic country as far as mostly Greeks, mostly Greek Orthodox, um, and uh, and yet to criticize Greece is not considered anti-Greek. Now again, it's different in that there's first of all, like, Greeks went through horrible stuff in World War II, didn't go through nearly the scale of devastation, obviously, and weren't the target of such horrible crimes as the Jews were in World War II. So the Greek story, is short in a nutshell, is like Greeks have been genocided. Greeks were driven out of much of the world. Greeks were discriminated against and all that stuff. Now, Greeks also have done horrible things throughout history too. Let's not let ourselves off the hook. Greeks do a lot of horrible things to this day. They were, attacked by the Turks, invaded and stuff. They did terrible things to the Turks too. They treat Turks badly still in Greece. But Kimberly Guilfoyle, formerly Gavin Newsom's wife, that scumbag, Gavin Newsom, that is. Don't be fooled by, he doesn't like Republicans. He also doesn't like homeless people. He doesn't like people who aren't filthy rich. He doesn't really do much for immigrants. Like a little better than some states, but they could be so much better. And he's busy opposing Trump now as fake opposition. But Kimberly Guilfoyle, who I don't know if she's still dating Don Jr. or what, or whatever the hell that relationship was. She said Greeks were lazy and entitled, and referring to their financial crisis and stuff, that they need to get to work more. Basically, the most boneheaded, stupid takes in favor of just austerity on Greeks and making them suffer. I don't know if she ever got appointed to ambassador. I should have looked it up before the video, but she was like being considered for being appointed like some diplomat or ambassador to Greece. Nowhere near like the same like outrage as far as like, well, is that anti-Greek? Now again, Greeks don't really, I don't know if Greeks really face much discrimination in America. Again, for me, I just mostly get, when I walk into certain convenience stores, they treat me like I'm a thief. They're like over serving me and shit. Okay, it's like not real discrimination as far as like institutional stuff. Like I've never really dealt with that. Like very privileged. But anyways, like it's interesting to note the contrast that Greeks are not demanded loyalty to Greece. Greeks, apparently you can say horrible stuff about Greece. That's not considered anti-Greek, which, I don't know, so be it. I mean, it's a stupid, ignorant thing she said. But again, you can criticize lots about Greece. There are lots of bad things you can criticize about Greece. Lots of chauvinism, fascism, right-wing ideology, a lot of racism. There's also a lot of leftism, a lot of courage, a lot of heart, and a lot of people who are really concerned, including people who want to make sure Israel does not get armed. If you've seen stories about Greek ports either not letting Israeli ships in or not letting them out to Israel, and good for them. But apparently she can get that kind of post and it's not anti-Greek. Basically what I'm saying, and also America is fucked over Greece bad. Like if you don't know, Greece had a military dictatorship when my mom lived there because of Lyndon fucking Johnson trying to fight communism. So they would torture people who were suspected of being communists there. They banned all kinds of literature and music that was considered leftist, including Socrates, I believe. Or was it? No, Aristotle. I think they banned like Aristotle's writings. They banned the music of, what's his name? He did the Zorba the Greek music. Now I can't remember his name. How can I forget his name right now? Mikis Theodorakis. They banned his music as like having left-wing ideas. I'm pretty sure they banned it, right? But Greece went through a lot of crap, or the Greeks did a lot of crap to each other, as this puppet regime for the U.S. Apparently you can do that, like it's fine. So some countries we're allied with, who gives a shit? Some countries, or one country we're allied with, where a lot of Christian Zionist nuts believe that the destruction of Israel basically is going to bring about the end of the world, and we should welcome that because Jesus is going to come back to judge the Jews and either send them to hell or they'll convert. That's literally that's literally what they believe. this twisted game we have of like, for some reason, they're a special ally. They're a special ally. They're different from everybody else. Becomes nothing more than, oh, they kill people and we help kill people. And that's Richie Torres' whole deal.